I'm Eitan Stern. I'm the director and founder of a company called Legalese. And what we are is what I call a creative legal agency. Essentially, we offer commercial, intellectual property and regulation and compliance legal services to creative industry, music industry, and tech companies. And that's an elevator pitch. that's actually extended. It used to be a lot shorter of an elevator pitch, but as you know, we started off offering commercial services to creative industry, and as our skill set has grown and our client base has grown, so have our service offerings. So it's been a very natural sort of progression. What's my background? My background was I was a law student that was involved in music industry and had a couple of tech companies that I ran nicely into the ground. And you know, I did my articles and worked as a commercial lawyer in a commercial firm, a really nice boutique firm. And one day I had the idea to try and offer legal services to creatives and musicians, which felt a lot more natural for me. And that was the birth of Legalese, and it's now 3 years later. We look after a lot of clients in the music industry from all sides of the industry, musicians to promoters, to festival owners, to record companies, and then creative industry, you know, everyone from artists to creative agencies to basically anyone that's got an idea that wants to try and make it work. And now, over the past year, we've been looking after a lot of tech companies and doing everything from intellectual property protection to their contract work to just general guidance and advice. Who are we? Why are we different to other lawyers? Is that we fitted a bit of a niche of something that lawyers didn't do and didn't want to do. First of all, we were serving clients that couldn't afford to pay the big fees, so we took a lot less profit, which has served us well. And secondly, we offer legal services in a bit more of a dynamic, interactive way than traditionally lawyers would do. Our pricing model is different, and we're industry specific, so we understand the tech industry and creative industry. We're not coming in from the outside, and we don't wear suits.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think to talk to this word startups,
yeah.
It would be good to hear from Legalese's perspective what a startup kind of means to you guys, and then in South Africa, what you're doing in terms of the startup space. Are you working with startups?
Yeah, so I mean, the idea of what is a startup is interesting because you're right. Like, you know, Facebook might be considered a startup, but it's the second or third biggest company in the world, but it didn't exist 11 years ago, so it's a startup. So, you know, what does the term mean to me? To define it in a South African context, I think one of the interesting things about South Africa is that due to the nature of our shifting economy, you know, there was a necessity for a lot of people in this country to create jobs. You know, there weren't big factories opening up that could offer people jobs, and but there's been a lot of focus from our legislation and our government and our industry into promoting people starting their own businesses. So then there's a couple of interesting reasons why, but I think in South African context, there's a lot of opportunity for people to do interesting things. You know, I think of it a lot in terms of the Soccer World Cup. So before the Soccer World Cup, you know, a lot of the businesses that exist and are around today, for instance, something like Startup School even, or something as simple as a music festival would never have existed because there wasn't a lot going on here. Something in the past 5-6 years shifted in our country and people are starting businesses. There's money available. It's not that expensive to start businesses here. And there's a lot of opportunity of things people have never done here. And so, you know, what is a startup? It's, you know, I think a better way to describe it is a young, creative, entrepreneurial person who, you know, has a vision, sees something that could happen, and there's a context in South Africa in which you can make it happen. So I think probably the better way, you know, that's what I see. That the better way to describe it is entrepreneurs. It's creative people. I like the term creatives a lot. And yeah, what does Legalese do is that our focus is on constructive work. So we help people take their creative visions and turn them into reality. People might, you know, someone who's an excellent graphic designer, as an example, might not have the business backing and business abilities, but that's kind of the easy part of the job, in my opinion. So we offer tools, suggestions, methods, design processes in order to help figure out the business side behind what people do and help people build and create things. So it's kind of fun.
Cool. Right. So the next question is with starting a business, there's obviously a lot to kind of take into account. In your opinion, from a legal perspective, what are the top three things to bear in mind from a legal side when starting something?
Okay. So the three big things when starting something. Okay, number one, the truth is most things around business can be figured out and can be thought of in terms of relationships. Businesses are no different to relationships. So, instead of thinking about the three big things, let's think about the three relationships that your business has. Number one, and very important, is the internal relationship. What do you need to do to make sure the internal aspects of your company work well? That your investors, if you have any, are protected and taken into account. If you're working on the business with someone, that you have your relationship with them sorted. If you've got employees, that you know your relationship with them. Think about all the things that happen under the belly of the organization, and that is very, very central to starting up an organization. There's quite a nice kind of rule in commercial law, or trend, is that the more complex your business, the more complex the structures. So when your business is young and small, sorting out the internal stuff shouldn't really be that complex. It doesn't need to be long-form legal agreements to work out your relationship with your business partner. It needs to be a conversation that's put down on a piece of paper. And that is the sort of thing which, if you get right at the beginning in simple forms, you can grow from that, and it means you're not going to run into trouble a year down the line because you've been ignoring the elephant in the room, which happens, unfortunately, very often. So that's something we encourage a lot. The next relationship to manage is the external one, and that's the one with your suppliers, your clients, and your partners. So you need to think about anyone that your business is working with. You got to ask the same questions. What is the relationship that we have with them? How's it going to work? How does payment work? Who owns what we create? What happens if someone cancels the relationship and wants to terminate? Thinking of these very simple rules in a relationship for your external parties is imperative. And once you start to think of it in just the same as your relationship with anyone in your life, your family, your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, where in all our relationships we make rules and we have conversations. And in business it's no different. You just can't ignore it. You need to have those conversations and figure out the rules. And so by managing the external relationships of your business, you're going to put your business, you're going to create sustainable relationships, which is going to lead to a long-standing business. And then the third relationship is probably one with the country, with your society at large, with the government, with the law. And and then you got to look at where does your business fit in terms of the grander South Africa. So are there laws that affect your business that you need to know about? If you've got consumers, what does the Consumer Protection Act say? If you're dealing in payment systems, what are the laws that affect, what laws do the Reserve Bank or the Financial Service Board have regarding your business? Or if you're doing something very niche, it could be around selling animal pelts. What are the laws around selling animal pelts? It's a very bad idea to do, but there's a dog over there which reminded me of it. We're not going to make that dog into an animal pelt, though. So you need to just think about what relationship does your business have to the country at large. So that's the laws. It's also your structure. Are you going to set up as a PTY? Are you going to stay as a sole proprietor? That's your tax that you got to pay. And you got to think about where your business fits into the world at the country at large. So maybe think of it in terms of you building a house. You got to find a piece of land to put it on, and make sure that you're building correctly. That's your relationship with the country. You got to make sure that the outside of your house looks good, and that your wall outside doesn't upset your neighbors, and that's your external relationship. And then you got to make sure that the family that live in the home are all getting along well. And the truth is, business isn't really much more complex than that. And anyone who tells you it is, Probably it's just making it more complex than it needs to be. Gets a little more complex, but the same principles still apply.
Fantastic, that's brilliant.
Cool.
Cool. I think the last thing I want to ask is in terms of guys wanting to get access to something like what it is you're offering.
Yeah.
What's the best way for them to go about it? Some advice on contacting your kind of services.
Legal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think can I speak about legalese?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So I think the one thing that we did with the legal industry, if the word the word that people would use would be disrupt, but obviously I'm not sure that we disrupted much. But one thing that I certainly noticed was that lawyers were a bit unapproachable and a bit too expensive. So for startups, they were spending 500-600 rand an hour on a developer, 500-600 rand an hour on PR, and then your lawyer was at 2,000 rand an hour. Plus, you had to travel, and pay for parking and all the, and put on a suit to go see them. And it was just something that people didn't really understand and was inaccessible. More than that, there's ways in that traditionally lawyers work, which I think are limited in how useful they are to startups. So because being a startup, it's a very specific type of work. It's the same as saying a lawyer that deals with criminal work is going to be able to deal with banking regulations. So what we did is we priced it differently. We make the service a bit more accessible, and it's priced a little bit differently to make it affordable. What's the best way to go about it? So there's a lot of people that are trying to do different things to try to disrupt the legal industry, and there's fantastic products out there. There's a big focus at the moment on legal tech, of automating legal services. It is a solution for some. It's not my solution, and it's a solution which I think, like all tech, it's got a hell of a big use, but it's got limitations as well, because you could probably say with contracts, you could automate contracts to get them, say, 80% right. But what I know as a lawyer is that, firstly, when things go wrong, they're not going wrong in the 80% that's automated. They're going wrong in the specifics. The devil is in the detail. Number two, my experience is that people are not coming to lawyers to tell them the law. I very rarely ever whip out, my textbooks and start looking through the law. While we do it, and we do research notes for people, most of the time what people want is they want good advice, they want a helping hand to go through things, and they want to lay out, they want to understand the greater context of what they're doing. So, my advice in starting a business is get a lawyer on board earlier, sooner rather than later. You don't need them to be doing high-level work for you, even if it's just mapping out the context of what's going on. What's the roadmap? What is going to come up in the next year, 2 years, 5 years? What do you need to be thinking about? Because you only know what you know, and a lawyer can, the law is quite important when you're running a business, and having someone just lay out a roadmap for you, I think, is a very valuable thing. And then there are some really interesting tools out there. There's some interesting lawyers there's a number of lawyers in South Africa that are focusing on startups, trying to invest in startups and offer them support to watch them grow. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think the best piece of advice that I can give, I think there's a lot of, we see two types of clients. We see a number of types of clients come see us, but we see people that feel very dissatisfied and feel like there's not enough support around them to support their startups, and things are too expensive, and they're too this, and they're not accessible, and they're not this, and they're not that. And then I think we get other sorts of clients that that have an attitude where they're willing to invest in themselves. They're willing to work hard. They're willing to be serious about what they're doing. And, in my mind as a startup lawyer, it's a lot of the time it's the attitude of the startups that means a lot to me. So if someone comes and they've got a fantastic, if they can't afford the fees, although our fees are low, if they can't afford it, but I look at this person and I think this is someone worth building a relationship with. They've got a clear concept. They're serious about what they're doing. They're willing to consider they're willing to build this thing correctly. I'm willing to invest. I'm willing to reduce our fees, payment plans, do what I can do to make, to help their business. Because I think a lot of lawyers and a lot of people that are working in the tech industry are doing it because they love tech and because they love development, and this is a passion that they have. I'm not a criminal lawyer, and I don't represent box companies, although I think we actually got our first box company as a client now. But we don't represent like companies, but we don't do legal work just for the sake of doing it. We're very specific in what we do, and we do it for the love, and because it pays the bills. But what I'm saying is there's conviction in what we're doing, and I think that for myself and for other lawyers, we're willing to meet people halfway. So if they can't afford the fees, but they've got a good attitude, I'm definitely willing to meet them halfway or go more than halfway if I believe in them. And that's very different from seeing clients that walk in and are, dissatisfied and aren't taking it seriously, and the rest of the sort of thing that people that fly by nights do. So I think that maybe that's an answer to the first question. What is a startup? What's an entrepreneur? It's someone that's innovative and is willing to work hard and take their work seriously. So the best piece of advice that I could give to any startup is have conviction in what you're doing, work tirelessly, work hard. If building a startup was easy, everyone would do it. But it's not easy, and you got to put in the hours, just like any business, just like I had to do, just like the startup school guys have to do, just like the owners of Investec had to do. And there's a direct correlation between hard work and success. And fitting in all the pieces is important, but you can only do that if you're willing to work hard and have a good attitude around it.